The Supreme Court of Appeal has ruled that the decision by former prisons boss Arthur Fraser to grant medical parole to former President Jacob Zuma was unlawful and has set it aside. The court has also found that Judge Elias Matajane's ruling that the time spent by Zuma on medical parole not counting towards that 15-month sentence that he received for showing contempt to the Constitutional Court should also be set aside. But it stopped short of effectively stating that Zuma should not return to jail. In fact, it has upheld Matajane's ruling that Zuma should return to prison in escort, and essentially said that any decision about the impact of that 15 months, of that time on medical parole on his actual sentence should be determined by the National Commissioner of Correctional Services if he is empowered by the law to do so. So it's very clear that they're putting the ball very much in the court of correctional services in relation to what happens next. But as the ruling currently stands, Zuma is expected to return to jail. The reason that this judgment is incredibly significant is that it makes it very clear that you cannot, as an inmate, get medical parole unless the Medical Parole Advisory Board explicitly finds that you fall within the ambit of inmates that qualify for such parole. In other words, you need to be terminally ill and physically incapacitated to a point of being unable to take care of yourself. Now, remember, Fraser had argued very vociferously that he had the ability to override the Parole Advisory Board. The court has said that this is not the case, and thereby preventing future abuse of the medical parole process through such political interventions as we saw being orchestrated by Arthur Fraser. What is also incredibly significant is that we know that Judge Elias Matajane was subjected to what Judge President Dunstan Mlambo described as vicious threats in the wake of his ruling that Jacob Zuma should return to jail and that his medical parole had been unlawfully granted. The court, the SCA, now saying that the judge was right in that determination, and obviously showing a great deal of judicial courage in our current political environment, which is beset by so much harassment, intimidation, and threats against judges, to simply state what the law requires. That being said, it is highly unlikely that Jacob Zuma, given his history of continuous litigation and challenging everything that can and should or will be challenged, he is very likely to appeal this decision. We don't know whether the Correctional Services authorities will do so, but it is unlikely to be the end of this particular case. It will then, of course, go to the Constitutional Court, which is the very same court that ruled that Jacob Zuma was in contempt and should be imprisoned. So there will be some form of legal tussle over that particular issue. And I think that it will not be, Jacob Zuma returning to jail is not going to be something that happens anytime soon.